Hi, I'm Josephine Moon. Welcome to the Hot Seat. Today I have with me Amanda Hampson. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Jo. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you here. You have a new book coming out, which I am really looking forward to reading. Would you like to tell us a bit about the book?
Okay, the book is called The Tea Ladies. You can see it right here. And it is set in 1965 in Surrey Hills in Sydney. And it's what they call cosy crime or comic crime. So it's about three tea ladies who work in the garment industry and meet every day in the laneway. And they get together to solve a crime.
And is that all we're going to get? No hints, no clues, nothing else?
Well, there's all sorts of things in it. It's just one of those. It's extremely interesting and complicated to write a murder mystery, I discovered, only because, well, first, you can't give too much away. And secondly, the whole process of constant twists and turns and threading the clues back through it, it's just one of those ones you've got to go over and over. I wanted to write it about tea ladies and about 1965 because, well, firstly, I was a teenager in the 60s, and I remember what a fantastic period it was. They work in the garment industry because there was a huge upheaval in 1965 in the garment industry as a result of Jean Shrimpton wearing the first model here. First mini here, sorry, where Jean Shrimpton, the model, wearing the first mini in Australia, which threw everyone into an absolute mind spin because it hadn't come to Australia at that time. So there's kind of historic moments woven into it, as well as the tea ladies' escapades. So it's not kind of using the tea ladies in a jokey way. They're very, very capable women full of surprises.
Yeah, it sounds great. It really does. And the 60s is such an awesome time to read about. I'm sure a lot of people are going to read that and think back with really good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you've been writing for a very long time now, so you're quite accomplished, but what was the moment for you when you knew you wanted to be a writer?
Oh, look, it's something that I always wanted to do. I grew up in rural New Zealand. There was really nothing going on. I mean, people think I'm joking when I say we used to stand up and look out the window when a car went past, but I'm really not. We didn't have television, not because we were Amish or anything, because it just, most working people didn't have television in the 50s and 60s. And so we read. And I loved reading. I loved being transformed by it. I loved being transported. And I love the idea of being able to deliver that to someone. I had an incident that I talked about actually on my website where I was in high school and I wasn't a very good student. I was always thinking about something else. And my English teacher read James Thurber to us, who was an editor with the New Yorker. And I thought it was hilarious. I was weeping with laughter. I had my head on my arms, just laughing. And when I looked around, everyone in the class was looking at me, didn't find it funny. And at that moment, I thought, oh, okay, so there's something else going on here for me, because that was genius. So if there was one moment, perhaps that's it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it was enough to just give you that fire of, wanting to be able to write things like that can really cut through things and be really different. Yeah. So what then was the moment, because I assume, like most writers, you have lots of ideas kind of bouncing around all the time, and we can't write them all, sadly. So what was the moment where you knew you wanted to write this book over any other book that's floating around?
Look, I hate to say I don't have lots of ideas bouncing around. I just have one at a time. One comes down the tunnel and I go, yeah, I can see that working. And it's often just a sentence or something. This one came, I love crime. I particularly love cozy crime. I don't like too much gore. That's the only reason. I love humor in books. I was reading a Facebook page called Australia Remember When, and I saw a picture of a tea lady with a big double-handed teapot and a trolley and a cups all piled up. And there were like 430 comments. And people say, oh, I remember our tea lady Mildred, we all loved her, da, da, da. And then somebody said, the tea ladies knew where the bodies were buried. I was like, boom, that's it. I can see, when I get the right idea, I can see the whole story completely unfold for me. So it was as simple as that.
Yeah. And I love that. That's great. Just that sometimes it is just that one line, that one sentence, and it's just, oh, that, I want to write about that. Yeah. So then when you sit down to write, are there any things that you need to do specifically to get yourself in that space or to create the right mood or the motivation? What does that look like for you?
Light my candle, sharpen my quill, things like that.
I'm sorry, do you actually have a quill?
Because people are always asking me, I write in bed, do you use a computer? What? And I always say, no, I use a quill. So I do it first thing in the morning. It's really, I've just moved to Melbourne a few months ago. So, the routine's changed a little bit. So I do it before anybody speaks to me, ideally. And so I wake up in the morning, have a cup of tea and crack on with it. So I will calculate when I want to get the draft done, and then the words I need to do, and I keep, like I'm sure you do, keep a list of each time I finish a chapter, add the words up. I just get on and do it every day, and my reward when I have done my word count, hopefully more, is that I put on my bathing suit and I go down to Fitzroy Baths and I do some laps.
Amanda, I think you're a far better person than I am, because I think you have incredible discipline there, and I love that your reward is actually to go swimming. See, my reward would be, cake. That would be my reward.
Well, look, I've been writing for 15 years. So I wrote with small children at home. I wrote with teenagers. I wrote having to work. I wrote doing lots of other things, and I had to build around all of those things. But now, I have a free run ahead of me, and that's the way I like to do it. And that's the productive way to do it. I enjoy it. Every time I step into this world of 1965, I am either chortling away to myself about the escapades of the tea ladies, or I'm kind of immersed back in my teenage years of these wonderful memories of the 1960s.
Yeah. I'm sure you've read hundreds and hundreds of books in your life. Has there ever been a book where you've got to the end and thought, wow, really wish I would have written that book? It's such a great book.
I'm going to give you a very surprising answer here, because I just recommended this recently. It's a book called Who Moved My Cheese?
I've read that book.
It's a life-changing book. It's about mice and it's about cheese, and you've read it, but it's about change. And I think that the biggest thing that I've seen in my life is people are divided into two groups: people who will not accept change and constantly go over the past and what could be different and bleat about what's lost, and people go, right, new chapter, on we go. It's as simple as that. And that book very, very clearly shows you how important that is. And so I think it's brilliant. It's a tiny little book and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So, he's a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I couldn't write a book like that, but I can see you put in someone's hand and they could change their attitude. Yeah.
It is really simple and just so clear. Like, it's just, yeah. When people get to the end of your book, how do you want them to feel?
I want them to feel, when is the next one coming out? Because I want to be back in that world again. I really wanted to write something very escapist. It's tough times out here at the moment in the world that we live in. And so I wanted to take people back to a gentler time, to a fun story, to an immersive story. So I'm sure you're about to ask what I'm writing next, and that is the next book of the Tea Ladies.
Brilliant. That's
Yes.
great news for those of us who are waiting to read this one, because then we'll know.
Well, it's great news if you like it. If you don't like it, you think, oh, she's not writing another one, is she?
Oh no, I think that's fantastic. There are so many of my books I'd love to do a follow-on for, so I love that you just going, no, this is it, I'm doing it. That's
yeah. Well, there was, a huge amount of research doing the first one because you have to remember a lot about the area and clarify it. And I had to look into crime in the area and study Surrey Hills and talk to I have a detective that I work with who was a cop back then. And so I've amassed an enormous amount of material, and there's so much more story to be had. Why not?
absolutely. That sounds like a really smart move. That's really cool. So my last question for you then is just, what are you reading at the moment?
I am reading Demon Copperhead.
Who wrote that?
Oh, no, you're gonna make me forget her name.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my goodness, it's gone right out of my head.
We can look it up. We'll put it in the
Yes,
notes.
we're gonna. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna look it up because she's written all the best books that I've ever read.
Oh. We definitely want to know who this is then, because that's a great.
Barbara Kingsolver.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I knew you'd know.
Well, there we go. We have a recommendation, not just for a book, but an entire backlog of books to read.
Yes. It's a marvelous book. It's really clever. It draws you in, and yeah, thoroughly enjoying it. And I'm glad it's like this thick.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming along, being in the hot seat today and telling us about your book. I, for one, am really excited to read it. And now I'm very happy because I know they'll have another one to come after it. And I'm sure it's going to do really well. So thank you for coming along.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Bye.